Welcome to Oral Communication subject. Throughout this course, we will learn various concepts and topics in relation to communication. To start with, prepare your learning space, self-learning module in oral communication, activity notebook, and of course, your pen. After this video, you are expected to give the definition of communication and explain the nature and process of communication. Today, we will discuss the nature and process of communication. What is communication? Webster defines communication as a process by which information from one person to another using different means, medium, context, media, and cultures. There are different ways of communication, either through face-to-face, phone conversation, group discussion, meeting, interview, letter correspondence, and class recitation. This time, let us discuss about the nature of communication. We will be looking into the four nature of communication. First, communication is a process. Second, communication is much more of an art. Third, communication has a sender and a receiver. And lastly, communication is a verbal and non-verbal. Communication is a process. It is a step-by-step activity. This means that communication has to undergo a process so that the message will reach its recipient or the receiver. As part of the communication process, communication will not be possible without the sender and the receiver of the message. Communication takes a two-way process that involves the active participation of the sender and the receiver. Successful communication takes place when the sender and the receiver are actively participating in the communication. This means that both parties should attentively share his or her role so that they can provide the appropriate feedback based on the topic of the conversation. Communication is much of an art. This means that there are different ways to send the message across. We can use different instruments. As you can see in the picture, the message can be sent through writing, cell phones, radios, transmitters, fax, email, and many others. Communication can also happen in either verbal or non-verbal ways. A sender can use his or her voice to send the message or just simply make body and facial expressions to send the message to the receiver. The universal facial expressions are happiness, anger, sadness, and fear. However, communication is also inevitable. Communication is taking place even when someone does not want or intend to communicate. Consequently, the success of sending the message is at stake, and the sender will possibly be misunderstood. Moreover, communication is irreversible. What have been said can never be unsaid. Communication is very crucial because this may bring negative effect to the receiver of the message. It can even destroy a person's credibility. This may also result to either conflict, broken relationships, or legal accountabilities may somehow take place. On the other hand, communication is unrepeatable. We may say the same thing over and over again, but the effect of what we said the second time will not be the same as the first time we said it. The message can have a different effect to the receiver depending on the mood or the relationship of the sender and the receiver. Here is the natural flow of communication process. The speaker creates or generates an idea and later converts that idea into words. He then sends the idea to the receiver. As a result, the receiver gets the message and interprets it based on the context and eventually sends his or her feedback. Let us have an example on how communication takes place in a typical conversation. This is between a child and his mother. The child Bezalel acts as a sender and his mother acts as the receiver of the message. Bezalel has an idea of wanting a blue bicycle. He then converts his idea of wanting a bicycle by thinking of telling her mother using their mother tongue. Bezalel sends his message by saying,
Ma, gusto ko og bike nga blue.
His mother receives his message as she hears what Bezalel said. His mother tries to analyze the message based on the context, and she realizes that he really needs the bicycle to cope with the boredom during pandemic. Then his mother sends her feedback by saying that she will buy a blue bicycle the next day. See, communication process occurs every day. It always happens when a sender sends a message through a medium and the receiver of the message will eventually interpret the message upon receiving it and sends the feedback.